So the new season and artifacts brought a lot of new weapons with it, and a lot of new different weapon combos as well. And one of the funnier ones that I've been playing is the BB Spear, and I like to call it the Roadhog cosplay. Because you can see from a couple of these clips here, I'm just, like, you literally just hook, and then they're just dead by a shotgun. Like, it's the craziest build I've ever played. It's so funny when somebody thinks they're about to get away, and you just hook their ass back in, and just one-shot them with the auto strap. It's really fun to play. And I kind of want to do a build breakdown real quick. So the first thing I want to go over before we get into the gear is make sure, like, you can copy this guide as much as you want, get these named item pieces, but make sure that you don't get cucked over by Magnify, because it's just so stupid that when you get full bis and then you can't get the stats you want with the Attuned leather because Magnify is just a shitty system. So some of these pieces you might not actually be able to get all completely named. For example, I have a lot of Magnify pieces on here, so you'll probably have to replace one or two pieces with a set crafted item instead of like these Magnify name drops. I hope they change it in the future, and I'm sure they will, but it's just such a stupid system that it's hard to bypass. So the first variant of this build is gonna be more of like an assassin kind of playstyle, where essentially you're not really looking to stay in prolonged fights. You kind of just want to get a couple picks and then reset. So the perks you're going to want to prioritize here is health plus refreshing plus fire harnessing. You can get that really easily with the Emperor's Zhao's light chest, light gloves, and potentially light helm, as well as the coleslaw boots that have locked in refreshing plus fire harnessing. Some of the weapon perks you'll 100% need is exhaustive net shot. I think it's very, very good. And I think leeching shrapnel blast is also pretty solid, surprisingly, because not only does it heal on the initial shot, the nade also heals you as well. So if you get an AoE hit with the nade, it heals you for actually a solid amount, especially if you're playing ANKH. Now for the weapon artifact, we are doing attuned leather pants. As you can see here, I locked in Shirk energy. I think Shirk energy is just way too essential in every light build. Down here we have the Tinglevine amulet, which is essentially when to prioritize health plus thrust protection. This build is a lot squishier than most because you don't have any LE or enchanted ward. You definitely want to get some protection on your amulet. If you can get stamina recovery as a third perk, that's amazing as well. For the ring, I really like Purifying Heart, Hardy plus fire damage. I think Purifying Heart is really clutch, especially this patch, like when you toss a vines on somebody and you're able to cleanse all of your debuffs off. If you don't like Purifying Heart, you could also replace this with Invigorated Punishment for more DPS, more initial damage, but I mean, that's a really hard ring to get, I'm gonna be honest. But if you can get it, I'd recommend Invig over Purifying Heart. As for the earring, you definitely want Healthy Toast plus Regenerating. These two perks are so essential this patch with how many dots there are, with how little pots heal you for, and it's so nice to have these two. If you can get Refreshing Toast as the third, that's perfect. Now moving down to the weapons, obviously we have Scorpion Sting. Put Killing Jagged on it, but you can also put Flame Attunement if you like instead. I think Flame Attunement's pretty solid because you have a lot of built-in fire damage from your ring, Runeglass, and fire harnessing. As for the blunderbuss, this is an easily farmable blunderbuss called the Deep River. It comes locked in with Killing Empowered and Enchanted, which is just completely bis. You definitely want those two perks. And for the third perk, Flame Attunement's really good. I think it is best in slot, but I was messing around, and you could also, if you're feeling like a Chad and you want to go for that maximum burst damage, you could go Shirking Flames, which it's pretty good, but again, it's a bit of a too much of a condition to be consistent, but when you do hit it, it just slaps, bro. It does so much damage. As for the gem, you definitely want just an ignited gambit slash opal. Essentially what that is the 12% damage while your stamina's not full, but also you're doing inflicting burn damage, which gets amplified by your whole kit. For the heart rune, I chose vines. You could go stone form, but I do think vines is just a little bit better. Now I wanted to talk about the attributes a little bit, and basically, well, kind of messed up right now, but the reason why you play Attuned leather pants and you don't want that much Magnify is so that you can play 350 strength, 150 int, and 150 con. That split this patch is just so good. 7% bonus damage while under 90%, which is pretty solid. You also get that 10% base damage increase to abilities, which I'm not sure how much that is on paper, but the main reason why strength is so good is because the amount of scaling that the BB gets off strength is just absurd. You get so much weapon damage for having 350 strength. As for the 150 int, you just want the 150 int node. 15% elemental damage is a direct 15% damage increase to your shrap and your nades, because those two abilities are completely elemental damage, and it's just absurd. This node is just way too good. You're also getting a lot of good weapon damage for your blunderbuss as well, so that's another positive. Now keep in mind, you wouldn't be able to hit these stat thresholds if you were playing Tumbler shoes. It really all comes down to the Attuned leather pants. Now if you were to play Tumbler shoes instead of Attuned leather pants, you'll have to replace your chest piece since the Tumbler boots are light pieces. And the thing about the Tumbler boots is it's actually pretty good for that uptime on Empower, and you also get the heal. There is a couple things that I would recommend switching up for this build besides playing like with the Attuned leather pants, and that is you should go shirking heals. Now like I said, you get a lot more self-sustain with shirking heals, and you can stay in the fight a little bit longer. So all you'd really have to do here is replace the fire harnessing pieces that you see here and replace it all with shirking heals, because remember, health and refreshing are locked in. And everything over here stays the same as well. The ring, the amulet, the earring, it all stays the same. As for the stat split for the Tumbler shoes, you definitely want to play 350 int, 100 strength, and 150 con. The reason being is because physically cannot reach 150 con threshold if you're playing full strength, because you need the 150 int passive. So just playing full int, losing some weapon damage is worth it, because you're actually getting some decent value over here. You get 30% duration to apply DOTs, which could be your net shot, which could be your nades burn. You get 7% damage to targets below 50% health, kind of like an executioner perk, really solid. And you get the 10% flat out ability damage as well. So it's not like you're losing too much from strength, because remember, you are playing the ruby in the spear, so your spear is doing half fire damage anyways. I just think that 150 con is way too essential. You still play 100 strength, so you can reach that 10% physical damage node, especially because BB light attacks are full physical with the opal. Now let's talk about the skill trees. So first off is we have the blunderbuss, shrapnel, net shot, very essential perks here. Nades do so much damage, and it's that finisher burst. And a lot of people might be wondering, like, why not play double down instead? I just think that unload is way too much damage to give up for a double down to be like more worth than it. Also, you would have to miss out on a lot of perks on the left tree to give up just for some shitty perks on the right side. Pellets are hitting for like 400 to 500 each. If you don't have unload, you're actually losing like 1000 damage total, which is just absurd, because usually your pellets are doing about 500 a shot. You also get more stamina off future endeavors, so instead of 6 you get 8. Now moving over to the spear is we have javelin, sweep, and skewer. This skill tree might look like it's missing a lot of damage, especially on the zoner side, but keep in mind where this build is meant to be a fully burst combo where you're getting maximum damage value off of your spear into auto shrapnel combo. So I spec'd all the way down into the javelin side into all the way to get deadly distance. That bonus damage for the jab is actually pretty solid. Sweep is super important because it's a counter to melee, and it has the grit, right? And if you sweep somebody, you can also get an auto shrap off very easily. Skewer is just a good bleed. If you have enfeebling skewer, you can get that as well in the weapon perk somewhere, but I wouldn't really recommend it, because I'm mainly always using skewer just to reposition and get away. The whole point of the skill tree is that you're not using spear for damage at all. It's like there's very few moments where you're using the spear to finish off a player, because the blunderbuss just does so much more damage, which is why I don't spec into things like Merciless Strength or Coup de Grace or Evasive Maneuvers, because I just don't really need them that much. The Runeglass setup. So of course you're just going to want a full ignited set, but for the gems specifically, I highly recommend going 4 emeralds and 1 ruby, because you're just taking so much damage from bows, muskets, and fire staffs mainly, to the point where melee isn't too much of a problem if you know how to play your distance correctly. As for the jewelry, I played 3 opals. This is basically always what it's going to be. I think opals are just so good this patch. You definitely want that resist to all elemental damage for things like poison shot, for elemental damage weapon splits like the bow VG, or bow with ice damage, as you see from my previous build. There's so much elemental damage in the game now. I highly recommend opals on the jewelry across the board. But that's about it for the Roadhog Spear BB Scorpion build. If there's any questions you guys had, please leave them in the comments for me. If you want to check me out on Twitch, you can. Link in the bio as well. And I hope this helped out, and peace out. Oh! Fucking sniped his ass! Run, bitch, run! Come here, boy! Where you running? You can't hide from me! I'm your daddy.